welcome to this very special presentation on the 5G revolution continues. My name is Steve Chappell, the Director of Trading Systems Development here at VectorVest, and of course, I'm delighted to be your host for this presentation. The information we're going to be talking about today was first discussed by our founder, Dr. Bart DiLiddo, back on his March the 15th, 2019 essay titled The 5G Revolution. In that essay, he kicked things off by saying the 5G revolution has begun, and now it's time to know about it. So let's go take a look at that essay and build up from there. So here we are in VectorVest. Of course, I'll go right up to the Views tab. Quickly, I'd just like to mention, I've already taken the time to go find the essay, and it's easily done with the drop-down calendar here at the top. When we get there, of course, he kicks things off by introducing the 5G revolution, giving us some great resources that we could go to learn a little bit more about the 5G space if that's something that's still rather new to us. So there was a great article, 7.5-page report really, written in the Wall Street Journal. Also gave us some great way to get some resources from Google, and then let us know that he's included a 44 stock watch list in VectorVest for us to utilize and leverage. And he also went as far as to give us 4 of his favorite picks from that watch list, and 3 of those stocks have absolutely soared since he published this. But perhaps most importantly, let's go take a look at that watch list so we can take a look at the space and see just how really valuable this information that we receive in VectorVest truly is. So I'm going to go over here to the Views tab, or Viewers tab rather, and when I get there, we'll go to the Watchlist Viewer. In the Watchlist Viewer, there's an Overview section. It's titled Overview Watch Lists. When I click that, the first one that we see is 5G. When we click on the 5G list, what it's going to do is take those stocks, there's 45 in here now, and it's going to rank order them as of right now. So some of your best opportunities are AMD, NVIDIA, Tencent Holdings, and so on down the list. Okay. Now, this is great information because, very quickly with just a few clicks in the program, we're able to get right to the heart of the matter and very easily locate some stocks that are sure to be great opportunities to take advantage of the 5G run. Now, perhaps more important is to show you just how well some of our top stocks have done from the date of publish of the essay. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? So if I go back, let's take a look at when it was published. That was March the 15th. And on March the 15th, of course, you're going to have a little bit of a different list at the top because these were the best stocks on this date as of March the 15th of last year. Anytime that you're initially opening up a viewer, you should be sorted by VST descending. So that gives you the best combinations of value, safety, and timing stocks right at the very top of your list. And often they're 3-time winners. They've got good, strong numbers all the way across for RV, RS, and RT. So great upside potential, very strong safety rating, and a stock that's on fire, that's absolutely rising in price. On occasion, you may have stocks that are a little bit more aggressive in nature, where the safety ratings may not be quite as high, but generally you're going to have a good mix of those kinds of stocks right at the top of the list. Let's see how in particular, the top 20 stocks. Let's see how the top 20 stocks performed by VST rating from the date of publish of that essay. And so if we do a quick check here, we'll quickly see that the stocks as a group have gone up more than 30%. When we look at some of the stocks at the top of the list here, you've got AMD that's up 136. I watch CNBC a lot, and I hear them talking about MAGA, kind of the move from FANG to MAGA, where now it's Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon. Very seldom, if ever, do I hear anybody talking about stocks like AMD or Lithium Holdings or Micron or Skyworks, And so that's one of the real distinct advantages of VectorVest is we're able to siphon through the whole space and truly determine what are some of the best opportunities and do it very quickly because all the work's done for you. These are the answers. But Really, really strong performance, guys. We're talking doing almost 3 times market movement with these 5G type companies. And tech has had a tremendous run, obviously. So this is a very, very valuable watch list, and one that you ought to be utilizing in some fashion to get a couple of stocks into your portfolios for sure. And I got to tell you, you don't have to look any further than the ones that are right at the top of the list. But it was just a week later that Todd Shaffer came to the table and said, boy, I really like that watch list that Dr. DiLiddo put in there. Let's see if we can begin to design some trading methodology around that list so that we've got something robust that we can move forward with versus just simply buying and holding some of those companies, which obviously isn't a terrible idea either. But at this stage, we can start applying some kind of general money management techniques like buying more than 1 or 2 stocks and using stops and things to manage our positions so that we know it's really and truly achievable performance that can be done in a reliable fashion. And so what this March the 22nd special presentation did was really go right after the thing I have underlined on your screen, which is how to best manage a 5G portfolio. And I gotta say, the system that Todd put in there really has continued to work pretty well from the date of release. And so kudos to Todd for putting a good system together. So let's go back into VectorVest and kind of revisit some of this material that Todd led off with, and then we'll show you some of the recent findings that we've kind of been noticing here lately in terms of maybe even souping up the performance a bit more. Okay, so first things first, let's go back into VectorVest and kind of pick things up right where Todd left off. So here we are in VectorVest. I'm going to go right to the top to the Backtester tab. It's in here that you can do a little research, make things more portfolio in nature in terms of, nothing guarantees future performance, right? But one of the best things we can do is utilize some recent history to determine some structure to how we want to invest in the space. People tell me that backtesting has no value at all. And my quick response to that is, well, I don't know, are you a sports fan? Try telling Bill Belichick that he shouldn't watch any game film to get ready for his next game against the Steelers. What he's after in that film is tendencies. He's trying to discover tendencies so that he can capitalize on those tendencies when it's game time in the future, And so the same principle applies here. No, it doesn't guarantee future performance, but what it does is it well equips you to be ready for what the future is likely going to bring. Okay, and so first things first, we're going to revisit Todd's portfolio here. And so this is the original. This is where it all began. And he showed us some performance starting from December the 31st, 2015. What I've done is brought it all the way up to the current time at this stage. It's now up 132 and nearly 0.5%. I've taken commissions out because, there's nobody has to worry about those these days, which is terrific. When we look at your annualized rate of return, you're knocking back 32% a year, which is terrific, especially when your drawdown is only about 16. So you're doing really, really consistent performance in the space with those kinds of numbers. And all in all, the equity curve is quite strong here. What I did next was, I wanted to kind of dial in and focus on the run from October, because that's really where the money has been here, for this past year, was just in the last several months. I mean, tremendous opportunity has been there. And when we look at his original system and only look then from when it would have kicked off, the way he designed the system, off the October lows, we would have jumped in on October the 17th, because that's the time that we first got the kicker up signal. And you can see I do have the signals on here. Okay. When we come back, you'll see that we have 72% winners as of right now. It's up 18%, and the drawdown has been minimal. So this is terrific. When we look at some of the stocks that are in the portfolio right now, we'll go to the holdings, and you'll see, my goodness, here's Skyworks up 40%. Okay, Nvidia, 40%. Apple, nearly 40%. Alibaba, 27.5%. Google, over 20%. Qualcomm, 16%. And you can see the results here. And so very, very, very good performance, you would say. Now, what I decided to do, though, is say, all right, well, we're off to a good start here, but let's see if there's anything we can learn from what's happening now to maybe make some adjustments to this plan, or at least things to think about, and see if we can really even capitalize on the space potentially a little bit stronger. Okay, so next thing I did was I just simply dropped it to 5 stocks. And that's usually a good place to start if you want to try to ramp up performance. Now, when you start to ramp up performance by reducing the amount of positions, you can see that we moved from 18% to 24% just since the October 1st up call that we received on the 17th. The drawdown went up a bit, and those two things tend to happen together more often than not. We don't have as much money spread among as many instruments, so if a stock hits a little turbulence, it's a little more painful in the portfolio. But at the same time, if the 5 that you're investing in are stronger than the 10 that you would pick, you can get some increased movement there. So to me, this is really a good discovery in terms of, hey, you know what? The 5 stocks are performing even stronger than the 10, and they do even better than the 20. There's a lot of testing that I've done that I'm not even going to get into today. This is just kind of where we landed. Okay, so 5, it was interesting to me because when I think about investing, I think about I want to have multiple irons in the fire. I don't want to necessarily do just all of my money in the 5G revolution, but it ought to be part of what I'm doing, right? It ought to be part of the solution in terms of really capitalizing on the stock market that we're in right now. And so to me, this means with a number like 5, because I don't have as much capital maybe as other folks might, it allows me to be able to have that as a slice of the pie, one little portfolio over here, and then I've still got my other 2 portfolios, actually 3, that I run, right? So that was interesting to me. And then what I did next was in Todd's original test, he included some diversification by limiting the number of stocks we would buy to only 2 per industry or 2 per sector. I decided to lift that under the 5 stock notion, because at that point, in particular, if it's only going to be a smaller segment of my overall capital, I'm a little bit less worried about being so diversified. So with that in mind, it did actually improve the performance yet again. We're sitting at 29.66% at this stage. And I said, my goodness, that's a nice improvement there. And drawdown didn't go up all that much, and I got a little extra reward. And so what I decided to do was then take this and rerun this over the original test bed that began really with January of 2016. I know it says December 31st, but we're buying it the next day. Okay, so it would have actually bought on January the 2nd of 2016 to launch the trading system. So what I'm going to do is make a copy of this last one. We'll go through some of the settings that I landed on, and I'll quickly discuss the differences, and they're minor, between this one and where Todd and I began, months ago. So I'm going to go ahead and click on copy here. And when I do that, I can walk through some of the settings with you, okay? I'm just going to give this a quick change so that we stay in evolution of progress here. So this is going to be number 5, the 5G revolution, okay? And all that I'm going to do is change the dates, but I want to show you the system before I do that. So I'm going to click on Customize Trading System here. So this can be programmed into the Genius, and we're still going to be leveraging the RT Kicker combo timing list that Todd used, okay? And here are the rules, obviously, for when an up signal is generated, a down signal, or a neutral. In an up situation, we're going to be leveraging the search 5G and it's going to be sorted by RT. Okay, and so this is going to be a great place to start. So we're going to use the RT sort, just as Todd did in his presentation. Okay, so again, to learn more about that, go back to the March 22nd, 15 video. In Profit Locker, this is something that I think is great because many of you have Profit Locker. You know, if you've been with VectorVest for some time, you've got Profit Locker. If you are not a real-time or intraday subscriber, you may not have Profit Locker. But this could be something to consider in terms of, hey, you know what? To get the kind of performance that I was able to see in this presentation, it might be worth it to simply move to something like an intraday data stream, just to pick up this proprietary stop loss that really is the best I've ever seen. You know, we're going to be using a 100 target and a 15 stop. And so you can see over here in the diagram, this assumes linear price performance, obviously, in an effort to show you how the curve works for our stop loss. Okay, now no stock moves like that, right? But assuming that we're able to, this is the kind of thing that you would see with the stop loss along the way. As the stock price goes up, once you get to break even, the initial trail widens out into just a flattening. And that's to create some space now that you've achieved essentially profitability on the trade. Now, as the stock price continues to rise, then eventually as you get, you know, a good way towards your target, the stop loss is then going to start aggressively moving up off of break even into profitability. And then the closer you get to your target, the faster that ascension of the stop price is going to be. It's really going to start to pick up the pace to lock those profits in more aggressively. You can see that there's a little bit of a tighter trail at the end. It's set as a 1% on default. Okay, so the great news here is you don't need Profit Locker Pro to get this done. However, you know, so just Profit Locker right out of the box is going to do a great job for you. Now, as with anything, I can start to improve result with Pro. But my effort here was to try to show something that anybody can do with VectorVest. Okay, so when I come up to the top, then again, I'm going to go to more settings. In more settings, instead of 10 positions, we are going to do 5. Okay, we are going to replace positions when we're in an up. Only when we're in an up, we're going to replace positions. The only two things that I changed from Todd's, this is an important setting, by the way, for somebody that might try to replicate this. Don't close any open position when coming into the up, because you kind of move from up to neutral to back to up from time to time. You don't want to be closing your winning positions necessarily, right? And, you know, only to buy more because the market's rising. So not closing is an important setting there to kind of let your winners continue to run for you. Now, as I go down towards the bottom here, the only thing I really did, aside from dropping it to 5 stocks, was eliminate the industry and sector because I went to 5. You know, I think those are incredibly important when Todd did it, because you're controlling more asset there. You're controlling 10 stocks. You know, you got to start thinking more aggressively about diversification there. So Todd absolutely did the right things there. Now, when we come over here to the left, we're not going to do anything in either a down or a neutral besides let our stops dictate what happens to the contents of our portfolio. In other words, if a stock hits a stop loss, whether it's at a gain or a loss doesn't matter. If it hits the Profit Locker and we sell it, we're not going to replace it. Okay, we won't replace it until we get back to an up. And so that's the main thing to try to get across here. So we're always going to have good market momentum behind us anytime we make a purchase. That's whether right when we start or at any time during the campaign of the portfolio. We're always going to be buying on market strength, and that's hugely important. Okay, so you can see no action and no action for both automation rules down, and automation rules neutral. All right, excellent. So with that, I'm just going to finish it up. And then we're going to finish and run this, but I'm going to run it over the same set of dates where Todd started. Okay, so we're going to go back here and begin on the 31st of 2015, which again, because we're buying at the next day, really kicks things off beginning of 2016. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just finish and run it, and let's take a look and see what this performance looks like. So I'll remove the signals, you get a better view. Well, we're off to a pretty good start, I would say. We'll see where this thing finishes out. Well, would you look at that? My goodness. Now, a couple of things that I want to spot for you real quick. This area right here, you can see where we had pretty good and substantial decline, and this is one of the bigger, if not the biggest declines in the test. You can see eventually it went flat. That's because Profit Locker at that point had closed all of the contents of the portfolio out because the market was in such a precipitous fall. If you can remember the closing 3 months of 2018, they were pretty rough, right? So eventually we just got into a cash position there for several weeks before we started buying stocks again. And lo and behold, that's going to be January of 2019, where the market just took off like a bird, And what I've been seeing here recently is some of the strongest performance on all of the curve. And so these stocks since the October lows have absolutely been going bonkers. So it's all of this points to this is an interesting thing to consider, whether you're just simply going to be utilizing the list and buying some of the top stocks, or even taking it to the next level and using a more mechanical approach to it. But I did want to share some of the numbers with you. We went from 132.4 to 246.82 with just those few minor adjustments. And again, for me, the interesting thing here is with just the 5 stocks, again, that can be a small slice of what I do, and I can still take a good portion of the remaining capital and cover my basis with things like the ultimate retirement solution and the options paycheck, and I can have multiple irons in the fire all at the same time. And so it's a terrific little trading system, I think, that we've got here. And whether you want to make it all of what you do, and then I would certainly go with something more like what Todd began with back in March of last year, or whether you want to go more of the smaller slice, of capital and really try to hit the ball out of the park in a bigger way. Any 3 of those avenues, I think, is going to be a great one, So just wanted to share some of this with you guys and let you know that, my goodness, when we look at some of the stocks that are in here, look at this. So that Profit Locker is really good, guys. We've got Keys, Nvidia, Skyworks, Microsoft, Apple in this current one. Not one of them's up, well, I was going to say not one of them's up less than 40%. There are 2 of them there that are just shy, But my goodness, I mean, just considerable strength across the entire contents of the portfolio here. When we come up to the reports section and look at some of the trade history, the winners are really running. And so Profit Locker is doing its job. Remember, we used 100 target and a 15 loss. That's to try to cut some of the ones that aren't getting off the ground as best they should fairly early, certainly in relation to stocks that are able to get up closer to those targets. So you got ShotSpotter. Now, that's not going to be a stock that you see featured on CNBC, right? You've got Nvidia. I did hear them talk about this one recently, but look at the performances up here. ShotSpotter, Nvidia, look, 92, 97, 90, 90, 82, 72, 51. You've got some minor gains, some minor losses. Biggest loss on the list right at that 15% mark. And so even with about 40% hit rate, you're hitting the cover off the ball. And by the time we close these 4 positions out, or 5 that are in there right now, everything in that trade window is going to look even better, So terrific little system. And we're really, happy with what we've been able to do for you guys. First and foremost, that Dr. DiLiddo brought it to our attention, right? I mean, that's the big part of the message, that he put a very powerful list of stocks into VectorVest for us, and that if we just bought some of those stocks, we'd be sitting pretty right now, Or if we want to go a more methodical approach and start to put some systematic trading behind it, you have a couple of things to utilize now. So don't forget about Todd's presentation back in March on the 22nd up on VectorVest University. And then certainly you've got some information now from this one to leverage there as well. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. I'll be available for question and answer on Monday at 2 o'clock Eastern. So we'll see you there. And so I'd just like to thank everybody for attending this presentation today. Hopefully you're going to see some true benefit from it. The 5G revolution is clearly still underway, folks, and really in a big way. And so hopefully you'll be able to utilize this information to make some good money in the stock market here moving forward. And we'll see you right back here next week with the very next special presentation. See you then.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Now, if you're new to the software or would like refresher information about the software, click on this Getting Started video right here. Thanks to all of your input, here's a YouTube video that we think would be perfect for you. Click right here. If nothing else, folks, just hit the subscribe button right here.